Welcome back, design students. In this video we're going to create the hammer for our peg toy. So to start off creating the hammer, I think that what I would like to do first is grab all of these components that we've created so far and move them over here. And then I would like to create a new layer for them so that I can toggle their visibility. And I'm going to select this layer and delete it. And hopefully I didn't just delete my objects. I didn't, just deleted the layer. Alright, so now let's begin to create the hammer. The hammer will consist mainly of cylinders, although you don't have to make it that way if you don't want to. But so I'm going to grab a cylinder like so, and then I want to rotate this cylinder horizontally this way around the x-axis. So I'm going to get my rotate tool, and I'm going to double click on it to bring up the tool settings. And I often like to leave my tool settings docked here with the outliner. So now that's not the way I wanted to dock it. Docked here with the outliner so that it's a tab right here. It stays up all the time. So I'm going to turn on in my tool settings snapping, step snap. I'm just going to turn it on relative, and then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And turning on snaps makes it easy to rotate. And I'm going to leave it in the middle there, and I'm going to focus on it by pushing F on my keyboard. And I have now switched to the move tool as well. And I want to actually switch to the scale tool, and I want to scale this out some, make it longer, and then I want to scale it to make it bigger. Only I want to scale it only in the X and Y axes, like so. That doesn't create it, that doesn't make it any longer, it just gives it a larger diameter. And then I want to make this thing flare a little bit. So to do that, what I'm going to do is create an edge right down the middle of this thing. And I'm not going to use the multi-cut tool this time. I'm going to use another tool. So I'm going to switch to edge mode. And then I'm going to drag a thin marquee selection right down the middle of this so that I've selected just the edges that are parallel to each other that go around the cylinder. And edges that are parallel to each other and are in the same edge flow are called a ring of edges. So I've just selected this edge ring here. It goes around the outside of the cylinder. And now I'm going to hold down Shift and right click, and I'm going to select Connect Components. And that puts an edge right in the middle of my cylinder and connects all those other edges. Another way that I could do this, if I wanted more than one edge, is I could Shift right click and select the Connect tool. It creates an edge in the middle, but I can also create more than one edge, which I actually want to do. I want 3. So I'm going to type in 3 and push Tab, and now you can see that I have 3 edges that are evenly spaced, connecting all the edges that I selected. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to push Enter, and now I have 3 edges on my cylinder. Alternatively, I could have just gone back to the Attributes editor and added, height segments, but I just wanted to show you a different method for adding edges, okay? I'm going to switch back to the outliner now, and we're going to make this thing have a flare. So to do that, I'm going to double click on this middle edge, and I'm going to get my scale tool, and I'm going to scale it down only in the X and Y axes, and that does that. And that actually looks pretty cool. I might just leave it like that. If we wanted it to have more of a curve, we could double click on that one, hold down Shift and double click on that one, and we could scale these down to give it more of a flare so that it's a smoother curve here. I think I'll leave it like that. You can do yours however you want. Obviously I like creativity, but I just think I'm going to leave it like that. But I am going to extrude out these end ones too. I think that would look pretty cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is switch to face mode, and I'm going to draw a marquee selection so that I select all those polygons on the end. And then I'm going to hold down Control and draw a marquee selection in. So I just touched these. So now I've deselected them and left me with the end polygons only selected. Then I'm going to get the Move tool. I'm going to hold down Shift and extrude that out a little bit like that. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here. About the same. And now I'm going to extrude these out as well. So I'm going to click that one. I'm going to hold down Shift and double click the next one, and that selects that whole edge loop, that whole loop of polygons. And I'm going to do the same over here. And now I'm going to extrude these out. So to extrude these out, I'm going to hold down Shift, right click, and select Extrude Face. That brings up a little gizmo, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this. So the thickness is how far out I want to extrude it. And I think I want it to be about like that. And that's all I really need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that by just selecting another tool. And I think that looks pretty good. Another thing we might do is switch to edge mode and click that edge and click that edge, and I'm double clicking to select the whole loop, and then we can scale that in like that so it kind of looks a little more finished. And then finally what I would like to do is chamfer or bevel these edges. So I'm going to double click on that one, double click on that one, double click on that one. I'm holding down Shift, so I'm selecting additional edge loops as I'm doing it. And I'm going to hold down Shift, right click, select bevel edge, and maybe I'll make this maybe 0.3 or 0.2 and give it at least 3 segments. And that just rounds off that very nicely. And then we're going to make the handle now. The handle is going to be another cylinder. And I'm just going to move this over. Get the rotate tool. Look at the tool settings. Make sure step snap is on. It is. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees in that axis. Then I'm going to get the scale tool and I'm going to scale it in the X and Y, or the Y and Z axis only, to make it thinner. And then I'm going to scale it in the X axis to make it longer. And move it so that it's embedded in the head here. Now if I wanted to make this shorter, I could simply switch to vertex mode and grab these end vertices and move them to make it shorter. Probably needs to be a lot shorter. And now I'd like to make a bigger handle part, so I'm going to make another cylinder and move this over. Get the rotate tool. Oops, sorry, I just created another one. Get the rotate tool and rotate it so. Get the scale tool, scale it out to make it longer in the X axis, and then scale it in the Y and Z axes to make it thinner, but not too thin. Now I can make this look a little better by switching to edge mode, grabbing this edge, switching to the move tool and moving that down a little bit. It just makes it look a little more finished. And of course we can bevel this edge here to make that look a little nicer. Shift, right click, bevel edge. Soften up that edge. And now I'm going to return to the channel box and make my pegboard visible and move my hammer over next to my pegboard. Oops. Have to switch to object mode so that I can see that it's much, much too big. So I'm going to scale it down. And to do that, I think actually I'm just going to scale down the hammer head. I'm going to get the scale tool and just scale it down a little bit. I think that's probably better. Now I'm going to scale this whole thing down, but what I need to do before I do that, so let's scale that back up a little bit. What I need to do before I do that is attach all of these components so that they scale together. So I'm going to select the handle, the head, and the shaft, and I'm going to go to Mesh, Combine, so that they're now all one mesh, and scale the whole thing down just a little bit to make it look more like it belongs with the pegboard. I'm going to take both these and move them back into the center of the scene and move the hammer up. And now I think that's where we're going to stop this video. Oops. And don't forget to save your work, always. In the next video, we're going to apply materials and set up our scene for rendering. And I'll see you then.